all points, get Friday off. You don't have to show up for midterm 3. I will see you again on Monday. Okay. I got a couple of questions, or someone asked, well, if I have 9 points and I don't want to show up, well, you don't have to show up if you don't want to do it. But 9 points are basically at 80%. So if you're good with that and you feel like I don't even want to bother, you can, if you have no points and it's like I don't care, this is my job, I still don't want to show up, your point. Just know the grade that you currently have is the number. So if you have 5 points, your current grade is 40%. If you have 10 points, your current grade is 90%. The only people that have 100% are the people that got 11. Okay? Yes.
So we have like the choice of which questions we answer.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's another thing. So let's say, for example, that you have 6 points, so you have 50% of the exam. So you will only have to answer 5 questions. That would mean that you will have all the questions. I think the maximum is 9 questions, and you can pick which ones you answer. Now you can answer one more for like bonus, right? Like, okay, I have to answer 5, but I want to give it a try for a number 6. But you're limited to 1 bonus because I don't want to be grading everybody's for 10 answers if all you need is 2. Okay, so you can pick 1 more, and from all the questions, you only have to answer the number of questions that you are still missing for the exam.
Hold on.
Okay. And the maximum number is 9. There's only 9 questions.
I need to answer some questions today.
Any more questions? Yes. Yeah, so if you have, let's say, 8.5, 9.5, then that's 85%. And if you wanna, so I would answer, the full question if you want. Of course, if you have to answer 5 questions, but you only want to answer 2, it's your grade, so whatever you want to do. It's up to you. And also remember, you get to drop 1 exam. So this is the one that you're tired, you need a break, whatever it is. That's also.
There's no final exam.
There's no final exam.
Okay.
Yeah. So I used to have final exam every semester, but so we're moving on to the your minor plans, which was new. I started that last year, and so students from last year were like, this is just too much work. We have to hand in 3 papers and then do student presentations and then do a final exam. And I understand it's a lot of work, so there's no final exam. So basically, we have all of these. We have your minor plans, and then the student presentations start the last week, and then that's it. After that, we're done. One thing is about the student presentations, and I know we're still weeks away, but part of your grade will come from attending other student presentations. If you miss my classes, it's like, again, I told you, not your money, but everybody's putting on effort in their presentations. So it's not just showing up to do your presentation. Your grade is also going to be somewhat affected. I will be clear on how much if you just come and present and stop showing up for everybody else's presentation. Good. Any other questions? Okay. So there was one thing from your worksheet that I think I just returned to you that we answered last class, and it was about what about hormones?
So the higher temperatures and carbon dioxide concentrations are gonna stimulate all of the hormones. So when the J, A, and ET, those 2 work together, so those are higher, those are like, do those attract the insects?
No, they do the opposite.
They repel insects.
Yes.
And then the essay, if that's on, that's just like helping fight the pathogens.
And yes, so the three main hormones are jasmonic acid, ethylene, and salicylic acid. And so one of the things is these hormones, and this is something we're going to explore the last week of class, but these hormones are the basically immune system that plants have, right? They don't have like the traditional immune systems, they have hormones, and they have to spread them through the plant so that different cells figure out what they are supposed to do. So as with your immune system, it's regulated by disease or pathogens. And then if temperature or CO2 messes that up and you start producing cytokinins or different things when just because it's warmer outside, that would not be okay. So that's something that is going to happen to plants. Did you say that both of them will induce all of the hormones? Temperature and CO2?
Just a warmer temperature.
So the warmer temperature will induce all, and what about CO2?
The CO2 is gonna increase the activity, but not on all of them.
Yes, which one is not all of them? So high temperatures, because this is important. So high temperatures are going to increase apparently all of them. You have to keep in mind those experiments are easier to do just because put a bunch of plants a little bit warmer and you kind of get a response, right? With CO2 is more difficult to do these tests, and of course the combination is even more difficult to assess. But what about CO2?
Does it only affect the salicylic acid?
How?
Because
I mean, is it going to affect it how?
it's gonna help like fight off the infections.
So it's going to increase salicylic acid, or is it going to decrease salicylic acid?
Decrease. I have an increase.
So you have increased everything for all of them
No, it's just gonna increase the essay.
and decrease the jasmonic acid. Okay. So, so a couple of things here is that plant hormones. We're going to, when you come back on Monday, we're going to start talking about be ready for a bunch of new hormones you've probably never heard of before. But we're going to talk about mostly jasmonic acid and salicylic acid. Jasmonic acid, or JA, is important resistance to herbivores. So basically what happens is, without going into too much detail, when a herbivore is chewing on a plant or something in the saliva is detected, the plant can do certain things to deter those herbivores. It can be releasing secondary metabolites or just releasing things to prevent that they continue to be chewed. Necrotrophs are plant pathogens that kill the cells in advance. So they have to, for example, secrete toxins, and then once the cell is dead, it infects them. That's a very specific type of plant pathogens. Salicylic acid is important defense against viruses, fungi, and bacteria. And so this kind of pathway does different kind of things, releases different chemicals, for example, tries to decrease the amount of lignin in the cell wall, just hardening the cell wall so that pathogens cannot penetrate as easily. And another thing is that in both cases, scientists have found that if you spray the plant with jasmonic acid, it will perceive it and will induce the genes that are induced by jasmonic acid, and same thing happens with salicylic acid. You don't actually have to expose the plant to the virus or the fungi. If you spray salicylic acid, the plant can perceive it as, we're producing salicylic acid, it's a hormone, let's tell the entire plant to do something. So temperature, so basically temperature is predicted to increase both, even ethylene. And ethylene and JA are kind of hand in hand. CO2, on the other hand, is predicted to increase salicylic acid, but decrease jasmonic acid. Okay. So one of the things from the reading, again, is that it's hard to tell really what the combination is going to do. Scientists think that high temperatures are going to override the effect of CO2, so that everything is going to be increased. So maybe, okay, plants are going to be able to fight everything else, but whenever you think of if your immune system was on 24/7, that would also not be okay. So what the causes are going to be, again, resources allocated to different places, plants will grow less, and what the outcome is going to be, we are not sure just yet. So I just wanted to briefly mention this. So JA and SA in plant immunity. They are very important. If you ever read a paper about plant immunity, they will probably mention these two hormones. And what happens is they are usually antagonistic to each other. If a plant turns on the SA pathway, it will turn off the JA pathway, and vice versa. There are some examples in which they can be synergistic, so I put it here, but those are the exceptions. What you will usually see is either you defend against herbivores or you defend against pathogens, or vice versa. And so this is a title from an article. And so basically you can see here that this is a fungus. So I don't know if you've ever heard of this disease. This is called anthracnose in corn. And so this disease clearly attacks corn. And so it's a fungus, and what happens is basically if you apply to the plant jasmonic acid externally, the plant becomes more susceptible to fungi. Why? Because it turned off the salicylic acid pathway, and now it's more susceptible to certain pathogens. And so basically this is quoted from the paper, they specifically know that SA is suppressed. And I'm bringing this up because I mentioned this to some of you, so I wanted to clarify here. Pathogens have learned this so much, and learn is clearly the wrong term because they don't learn, that some pathogens mimic jasmonic acid and secrete. This is actually a toxin that is called coronatin. And it's not the same structure, but jasmonic acid has different active forms, and it is similar enough that it can bind the receptors and activate jasmonic acid mediated pathways. And so there are some plant pathogens that mimic jasmonic acid. The plant thinks is being exposed to a herbivore, turns on the JA pathway, turns off the salicylic acid pathway, and of course becomes susceptible to the same pathogen because the plant thinks it's being attacked by something. I need to prioritize the JA pathway. Let's turn off the SA pathway, and then defense genes are off, and the plant can colonize. We're going to talk specifically about this example later on, but I wanted to show it here to you. It's the bacterial speck disease on tomato. The bacteria is Pseudomonas syringae, and these are the symptoms. And it's a very clever pathogen, so I'll just put it here. So it requires this coronatin, and also it's an important thing. JA is also important for closing and opening stomate against pathogens. So know something about stomate. So under normal conditions, stomate are regulated open or closed depending on environmental factors. If we detect some pathogen-conserved molecules like peptidoglycan or certain things in bacteria, they will close. But jasmonic acid doesn't let them do. So besides shutting off the defense responses, some of these bacteria, they don't even have to reach the cell wall. They can just, stomach are open. So you don't even have to work hard so much. You're letting into the plant just through the natural openings that a pathogen prevents the plant from regulating. So we will talk more about this lots. Any questions? Good. Okay, so in a very drastic change of views, we're going to be talking about bodies. So, because we have been talking about climate change and food security, and I had all of these papers about C4 and rice and how to make food better and all of that. But I don't know you, but sometimes when we think climate change, we think, oh, the poor people that have their penthouses in Manhattan, jokes on them, they're going to be underwater. Oh, the rich people that have houses in, Miami Beach, the jokes on them, houses are going to be underwater. But climate change is so much more than that. And even when we think of food security, we're thinking, oh, inflation is 4% and we can no longer afford this kind of thing. So climate change is really climate. And we are so connected that is no longer, that I don't think we can really detach so much anymore and say, well, what happens there is their problem, it doesn't affect me. So yes, I feel sad, but that's really not my problem. It's clearly everybody's problem. So does anyone want to share anything that particularly impacted you about this story? Yes.
What I thought was huge is that it was saying that in Pakistan, a third of the country was actually getting some sort of like gross underwater during that flood.
Okay, so 1/3 of the country, and so what did you like? What would, I mean, clearly it's flooding, but like, what was the thing that impacted you? Like,
Well, obviously, I was talking about how half of the population in that certain region was like 50% farming. So I'm sure that in some way will affect a multitude of countries in terms of getting certain whatever they grow there.
yeah. So here, and of course, I'm not saying like compare and doesn't matter, but we saw what Hurricane Ian did a couple of weeks ago, and we saw flooding. Now imagine that 1/3 of the country is flooded, whatever whatever that means in whatever proportion. Imagine the impact that that is causing when 1/3 of a country has been flooded for a while. Some of these stories are back from September. Yes.
I thought it was interesting that the article said that they're one of the places that have contributed, like the least amount to what's going on, but they're one of the places that have been affected the most.
Yes, that's one of the things that really hit me as well. And they mentioned how Pakistan is one of those countries that has contributed the least to climate change in terms of CO2 emissions, and yet is the country that's impacted, or but one of the countries that is impacted the most. So that was kind of. I just wanted to say.
Oh, I was gonna say that the thing that impacted me the most is just like how trapped the people are. Like they're trapped, like they have, this is their only livelihood. Their government is like too focused on who has power to actually help their people. And I don't know, like there's just nothing they can do. Their farmlands are flooded. They have no money to leave or go anywhere else. It was just that was kind of what hit me.
Yes, and I think one of the things is clear. I mean, I'm not saying clearly because I don't pretend that I understand. I just write a couple of articles. But this is beyond climate change. So it's talking about power and how political power and political unrest plays a role in this. Also, the caste system, right, is kind of keeping people. There's no like work hard and you're gonna do your thing. The caste system. Again, I'm not gonna pretend I understand it, but I know there are some pressures on you staying in the custom place where you were born. So people are limited in many cases by that as well. So many things playing roles in here. Addison,
It was the same as Addison.
oh, okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Kind of going off what Addie said, I think in the second article, like towards the end, you mentioned that he like felt like a slave to the land because they have to pay the landowners to be able to crop the land. And then after everything got destroyed, it's like they're in even more debt. They can't come up with the money to get all of the products and seeds and everything they need to like even rebuild what got destroyed.
Yeah, that to me was so the whole thing about how they get in debt. So their land isn't theirs, and how they get in debt to plant it. So it's not just the loss that you see, but you're actually in debt to someone whose business, it's just probably that's how the system works. They have the land, but they don't work it, so they rent it. So you rent something and you own back the money. So beyond this and beyond losing everything, you own money. And if you want to get out of trouble, you have to borrow more money and hope that this doesn't happen again. So yes.
With the money, it was in the government, it was saying that it was about 46% increased inflation in the last couple of decades. And that is just, so even though they have the debt, it's being more with less value, so they can never catch up. And I think it said there was one board where 75%, the other one was 50% of all business was agriculture. And if they lose half of their country, they're losing more of that is in the farmland. And the lack of aid, I think you said there was about 1 million in foreign aid sent or yearly, or what? Yeah, to the US. And
Another article.
1 million, it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things to be sending as aid. So it's just for that allocation of funds with the inflation rate. There's not a way to escape or to create any revenue because there's just a constant, you're falling behind. Even if you're working, the inflation is catching up at a faster rate.
Yeah, especially because of the dimension of this. This is not like your house fell, I'm gonna lend you money, but your house fell, and we're gonna build it if things are underwater. I mean, so it's not just, it's not just, I'm not saying it's not helping, but it's not just like, here's the money, it's gonna be fixed. Just like that, yes.
One of the things for me too is like they're growing these crops and a lot of them like they're doing it to feed themselves. It's like they're not really doing it to make money, but they're doing it to survive. And then like hopefully they're like hoping to make enough money in order to pay back like those loans and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really like not only putting them in debt, but also just like destroying like their main like source of survival.
Yeah, so when you see that and when you read that, it kind of shows you that it's not just profit. Like, okay, we're gonna make this much money and we'll move from here. It's just survival. It's what you're eating. So it's a cycle. And at the end, when they said it's like they are slaves to the land, it's true because it's not like, well, I lost what I invested. I'm in debt and I have no food for me. So it's more serious than a farmer losing a lot of money and owing money to the land. It's just farmer doing all of that, and then the food that they were growing was for themselves. Yes.
I also thought it was interesting too, where he said that they estimated that they would need about $10 billion to do anything about the damages, but they can't keep a governor. Every time they get a governor, he gets like pushed out because of his policies or other things that are going on within the country. So I just thought it was funny that they can't even focus on a real problem that they have in their country because they don't even have the right leadership to do so.
Yeah, and so one of the things is, on natural disasters, you were saying that if once things get so bad, the only option is do things better. But I mean, I remember we had in 1986, I believe, so that's what there's like multiple videos in Colombia. We had a landslide, so it was a volcano eruption, a landslide, and an entire city disappeared. Like the next day, the city was gone. Like thousands of people just buried. So almost like 90% of the people were buried because that occurred like at 40 in the morning. So there was no warning, everybody was out. And so the few people that survived, it was help from international help. And you can see the videos of news recording of countries sending like clothes and things, and the people, the volunteers that are there helping, are changing their clothes and putting on the new clothes. Like you would think that if you went there to help and you see the devastation, who cares about new blue jeans? I mean, like that's the least of your worries, and people were doing that. Also, one of the sad things that happened is many children disappeared because their parents. And I personally know someone close to my family, her 3 children disappeared. And to this day, she doesn't know if they're alive. And there's videos of children being evacuated, and nobody knows where they are. So I'm not saying that this is, but clearly there is just, you kind of lose faith in that money is going to solve it. I mean, hopefully these people are, whatever help they get, but there doesn't seem to be rock bottom. Sadly, besides this, we have, there's very little hope, I think, in terms of as long as it's not me, okay, sort of. So, so this was one of the goals. This is of this reading was like it's no longer so much isolated, but we're gonna see how this is impacting everybody. Okay, so let's specifically talk some specific effects of climate change.
So the lack of water in the soil and the excess in the atmosphere causes flash flooding and a lot of overall flooding. This is because, and landslides, because the soil is, the higher heat is getting more to evaporate from the soil, which means it can hold more. But that also means if it holds more, its weight distribution could cause cliffs and other things to fall. And if there's more coming down, obviously places that have improper irrigation or are close to coastal places where most of the water comes from the ocean, it can cause flash floods, overall floods, and that can also be in comparison with now that there's no water in the soil after the evaporation contributes to the devastation done by forest fires. So it's just a circle of fire, water.
Yeah, so it's a cycle, and many times it's like, well, so where is the water going, right? If there's more evaporation because it's warmer, it's going somewhere, but it's a cycle. So first of all, glaciers, we all know, right? So there's more water put into the oceans, and then eventually more water being evaporated. So I remember actually a couple of months ago asking a friend of mine who is a hydrologist, and I asked him, I always read about the water cycle and it's climate change, and so it's raining, but if it's raining more, isn't that better for the soil? Like what is the problem? And very probably out there, I just didn't say it. The problem is not more water or less water, it's that all the water is falling at the same time. Like you have no water, no rain, and then bam, all of the rain of the entire year, of the entire period hits you at once. So that's like one of the main issues, more than because if it rains more, it's evaporating more, so it's cycling more. So warmer temperatures, warmer atmosphere can hold more humidity, which in turn rains more. But when he said it was more of the water falls at once. So you don't want all of the water to fall within 2 weeks, all of the water from a year. You remember from the reading, they know there's a monsoon season, you expect that it's going to rain. But this apparently is like 5 monsoon seasons and once. And then you're drier. Also, one of the things I think is so the soil and how dry the soil is at some point can help. So if soil is dry and it rains a lot, it might be okay for a while if the soil can absorb some of it. But this flash flood, these floods, doesn't really matter. There's so much water that the soil can really deal with all of that. Yes.
Doesn't the H2O kind of also add to the heating effect? Because if I remember correctly, H2O is considered somewhat of a greenhouse because of its ability to maintain a heat temperature.
Sorry, what?
So doesn't the evaporation also add to the increase of heat, to the cycle? Because as you add humidity, you can also retain more heat. Because boiling water, it takes a really long time to say lose that energy, just like how it takes a long time to gain energy. So I thought it was also considered one of the greenhouse gases, even though it's not a pollutant. But
so I'm trying to think which way, because even for plants, when we talk about the difference in water vapor concentration for evaporation, so it's like the outside is warmer than the leaf, and so outside always holds more vapor, but I am not sure if, probably it's also the other way around. At the same time, if there's more vapor, warmer, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. I just know it's considered a greenhouse gas, so I don't really know how that plays into it. But I was just thinking, because I didn't mention it in there. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
But,
Yes.
So I have some distant relatives that are farmers, and they were telling me that one of the issues is like you said, the water from the ground in the soil evaporates, but there's also this weird pressure thing that goes on where wind tends to blow it away.
So it actually like evaporates from an area and blows away. It actually like floods another area and it keeps getting flooded that area, while another area that would normally receive it is like continuously drowning. So that was something that they had told me like a week ago, and I found that pretty interesting.
Yes.
And then read some papers about like the rising ocean levels, like partially due to like the glaciers melting and like, adding water to the system. They also have like thermal expansion of the water. Like, as it heats up, like the average temperature of the ocean increases, like the water becomes less dense to like expand.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, like, my mind, like the universe is infinite, but it expands. It's like, okay, there's no end how it expands. For me, also the water, just water taking more space. I mean, I know the amount that we're dealing with considerable, not like a glass of water, but yeah, water also expands, it takes more room. So water levels increase. Okay, so we have a couple of things here. So warmer temperatures brings drought, storms, the sea level rises, lost species, we know that. Health risks as well, as vectors and diseases. We talked about insects having more than, reproducing more, also being released earlier in the year, and they can probably reach places that were out of reach because of temperatures and warmer temperatures. Both sides. Anybody knows this? Yes.
Weather is a small thing that can happen in a smaller area where climate affects a whole larger area. It's like how in the U.S. we have multiple different climates. Down in South, it is more of a warmer, arid climate, and we are more in a cooler but not as terribly cold kind of climate.
Yeah, so climate involves both smaller areas and also it's what you have over short periods of time. Like this summer was very hot. That's climate. That's not weather, right? So weather is basically what you have to focus one thing at a time. So basically what you have is so let me see. So now I'm not sure if I get confused the last time, but please help me. Weather is short term. Climate is long term. I'm trying to figure out what I just said. So what you have for weather is, yes, the weather is changing. Climate is, larger regions and what happens over longer periods of time. So, kind of already answered this, but
So what was saying in the reading is that it's possible with this really complex system because there's so many things that affect the actual floods actually. So they were talking about how whether more just more of that rainfall, more of that water, like we said, at one time over a course of like a certain amount of time. In the reading for Pakistan, it stated that they got 3 times the amount of water in a certain time span than you usually do previous season. So that's one of the ways.
yes, and I think at some point they mentioned like 56 hours of constant rain. Like I cannot imagine 56 hours of rain. I mean, just here being safe at home. So cannot imagine a place where I think there's a part where one of the persons says that they went to like a hill and took their animals and just waited there and they could hear their house falling apart for the rain. And there was, I mean, you just, then at the end he said, well, at least we survived. So, yes.
Because of the monsoon seasons, there's like water being trapped in the air. So when the water is trapped in the air and the atmosphere, it's not coming at that particular time, but because it's trapped there, that's what's causing the plants to come out.
Yeah, because you have all of the water. So again, warmer temperatures, the atmosphere or the warmer air can get wrapped of humidity and water vapor, and then basically that accumulates more. So what about the leaf? Yes.
So just to answer the first one, the most important crops in the area, I believe between the two readings were cotton, oddly enough, or I don't know if that's odd, but I didn't know that that was particularly grown there. And wheat, but wheat is a lot more important, like not necessarily as like a monetary thing, but just for them to eat themselves, like it's their main food staple, or it's supposedly like one of the main food staples. And then like when you say what is currently being affected, do you mean
Like right now, what is like because it's flooded. So you have two crops. You have cotton and wheat. Right now, what they have planted, right? What is being affected right now?
definitely the cotton
Yes.
currently.
Yes.
And then the wheat, they're trying to plant, but all their fields are flooded, so. And then other crops that they have too, their field is flooded, so they can't necessarily get to what crops are left and they can't plant new ones.
Yes. So they are growing wheat and cotton. Actually, I didn't know about cotton, and they export like 5% of the world's cotton. So it's a lot of cotton. And so one of the things is that right now it's growing cotton, and they start planting wheat between October and December and harvest somewhere in May. Because everything's flooded, there's no way they can plant, and even if the water recedes, it's soil that has been underwater for a while. So how successful that, plus they had to get more in that to plant the wheat. Is a problem, especially because the wheat is like, okay, so what are we gonna eat next? So I wanted to show you this because I found this very satellite image, where you can really see the amount of water and land that was there, and now it's just water. And being a satellite image, the dimensions of this, I thought it's pretty interesting. So, to talk a little bit about food security. So, wheat is the most important crop. About half of their calories come from wheat. About 30% of the country grows wheat, and about 2.5 of global wheat production comes from Pakistan. So this is where it stops being so much just their problem and starts being sort of everybody's problem. The other one is cotton, and basically, as they said, so it's more the cash crop. So it's unusually this is where they get their money from. Exports 5% of the world's cotton, and the textile industry employs about 1/5 of the population. And about half of the cotton is damaged right now. So also, the last one is rice. So not particularly the region that the article was talking about, but it's 90% of the world's rice. So now it's a big hit in terms of rice, whether you eat rice or don't eat rice. It's rice is one of the staples foods in the world. If prices go up in Asia, that's going to impact everybody. So, well, this is the outcome. Just wanted to show you this. I found this yesterday, and I thought it was, so the cemeteries are flooded. And, well, you can imagine what happens with cemeteries. There's more diseases, plus that you cannot bury the people that are dying, plus the people that are buried are no longer living. Yeah, so it's just not looking any better. what do you think affects the global price of wheat? So let's say bread, everybody's bread, right? So, what global factors do you think affect the global price of things like wheat? Yes.
How much it costs to import wheat from other countries to make the bread?
Yes. What else? Like globally. What else can you think of?
Like how available wheat is, like how everybody's growing wheat, because like if we don't grow wheat as well in America, we would need to get it from somewhere else to make all the bread and food that we would need.
Is there anything else you think in terms of something else that is going up that can increase the price of wheat? Is going up that we have to pay for everything?
Like gas prices
Yes.
to import the wheat.
So gas prices both for importing the wheat and for just growing the wheat, right? When we think, so from this reading, it's not so much gas prices because people manually plant their wheat. But let's face it, I don't think anybody here grows manually, mainly over planting their own wheat. So for planting and for harvesting, you have gas prices also increasing the price of wheat. So you have many things, yields, demand, oil prices. So oil prices we can all relate to. Oil prices go up, that increases price of food as well. So what is the price of food? I wanna, if you can, go to these economic indicators website. And one of the products preferably food, just green plant. So you can check how the price has changed over a month, 6 months, a year.
Nope, that's not it. It's not the website.
So can you get to the graph? Maybe selecting one of them, if you select, for example, coffee. Yeah, so if you click on whatever product it is, then it will take you to the graph. Meaning that you can change like 6 months, a year. So whatever products, well, not whatever, they might vary, I didn't check all of them. So can you tell me the product that you selected and how it has changed over the previous 6 months or a year? Is it up, down, or change? Yeah.
Cotton has dropped dramatically. From May, it was up $150 per pound, and now it's down to $78 per pound.
From May, okay. What if you go back a year?
A year? Let's see, October. Is there anybody in Spanish saying that? Oh, wait,
I think down here, maybe you can select. Maybe you can do that.
So just about, yeah, it's about a difference of a few dollars. They went down $2.
Yeah. So even when you look at a year, the cotton right now is a bit down relative to a year ago. Anybody else that did something different? Yes.
we looked at gold.
Oh.
6
Gold
months ago.
plants.
Golden plant.
6 months ago, it was at 1900 and it's dropped down to like 1630.
What about a year?
It started at around like 1750, spiked up to like 2050, then it went back down.
So it's similar to cotton in the sense about a year ago was a bit higher than it is right now. Anyone else look at something?
Wheat's actually higher than it was last year by like $100 a bushel.
Oh, wow. How was it like 6 months ago?
It was a lot higher 6 months ago. It was like $400 more than it is now per bushel.
Okay, so now I wanted to look at 10 years. What happened to gold?
So it is actually 10 years ago, it was at the same rate that it is at now.
Oh, okay.
Neat.
I thought gold always just goes up. Yeah, I was wondering.
Cotton went up by $10.
So cotton 10 years ago was cheaper?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
The coffee is like $44 more expensive per pound.
Right now.
Yeah, West End is what's.
Yes, so you see, so whenever you look at, and I think I was looking at milk or something, and I saw this chart, and I was like, wait, isn't food more expensive? Like, why is it going down? I'm paying more for food, so I didn't get it. And the more you expand it, you know, and this is, well, not this one, but I'm gonna show you a graph that is adjusted for inflation. So you're going to see overall, things go up, but they don't just go up and down and up and down. So we already did this. So I looked at wheat, and so when you look at 6 months, looks cheaper, but then when you look at the 10-year trend, or 5 years, wheat is really more expensive than it was 5 years ago. So why is that important? I want you to look at this. This is adjusted for inflation. So this is from the FAO, and is the World Food Price Index. Accounted for inflation, all of this. What can you tell me about the overall price of food for the past 60 years? Oh, sorry, I said right. Nick.
So over the last 60 years, it kind of hit a spike, obviously, there in 1975. I can't really, is this worldwide or is this?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
worldwide.
I can't really say why that happened in 1975, but the overall trend that I'm noticing is like, you hear about like the food shortage coming up or like anything like that and inflation and all that. So it makes a lot of sense that right at 2020 to 2025, it's just like insanely growing exponentially really fast. Like,
Yeah.
Which
So-
makes sense.
So you see, this is worldwide. So one of the things is the food prices all over the world have fluctuated. So you bring up an important point. What do you think happened here? Yes.
Vietnam War.
The end of the Vietnam War, right? So it's not just a problem between Vietnam and the US. Let's not get into all of that. It's not just a problem there. Yes. I won't be saying anything I shouldn't. So it's not just an isolated problem, right? So we have the 70s recession. So we have the oil prices, the deficits of the Vietnam War, and then there's the stock market crash that was huge in the 70s. So all of that affected, yes, the US, but affected Asia. What can you tell me about, let me see, where's another peak? Maybe here, like 2007-ish? Yes.
Housing crisis, maybe, the United States, this is
So how do you think the housing crisis was going to affect the world, right?
it was a pretty big economic collapse just for the United States as
A recession.
And I imagine we export a pretty significant amount of food. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so there is something that happened, but it's yeah. So it's actually in plant terms we call it the food price, not the house price. Like we don't know the you know what happened. So this time there were a lot of droughts, the rising prices in oil. So gas also went up everywhere. Fertilizer prices. And also that's the year when people started getting into biofuels. So against what you would think, biofuels drive the food prices up. Because up until now we use food to produce biofuels. We use corn to produce biofuels. If you produce corn to produce biofuels, you're still producing a lot of corn to throw it into biofuels. So we're getting there, but it's not still very efficient. So also higher demand for resource intensive food. So around this year, many parts of the world that, for example, Southern Asia that wasn't so much into eating a lot of meat, suddenly they were like, well, the entire world is eating whatever they want. Why are we not just eating whatever we want anytime that we want? And so the consumption of meat increased. And if you think about it, you have to spend 7 kilograms of grain to produce 1 kilogram of meat. So the more meat the world wants, the more grain you have to produce, the more food you have to produce. That's going to drive food prices up. Let me see what else. Well, this one we don't know. It's about 2020. So we know it's COVID, and right now oil prices, so it's still going up. And the last one is, can anybody tell me what you think happened here? This peak of around 2012. Yeah.
Some people were thinking that the world was going to end.
Oh, well, yeah, I didn't think about it. I think that's more like 20. Well, yeah, 2012 wasn't that the man? You know what? I didn't think about that. Maybe. Yeah, I didn't think about it. But so there was something called the Arab Spring. So I don't know if you are aware of this, but basically the entire because still the entire Arab world, like 14 different countries were in, lots of like revolutions, and it all started. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because anti-government protests started basically in this area and then started expanding and expanding and expanding. And the Arab Spring was just like revolution in countries, all driven because there wasn't enough food. So when you don't have enough food, things get ugly. So it stops being just someone isolated problem. People expect food prices to increase even more because of all of the effects on oil prices and blocking oil, and we all know what's happening. And the last thing I wanted to mention, in case you didn't know, the French Revolution in part was driven because of shortage of wheat.
Let the meat
so it is not just their problem. Clearly, it's a problem for everybody, and this is right? Anybody has any questions? Good. Okay, so you figure out if you want to show up on Friday or not. No, then I will see you tomorrow.